This is my 2013 Kia Soul. I had a problem with the middle center brake light not working, and it turned out to be a broken wire that leads to the bulb. I'm going to show you where that could be, because it's a design flaw, I think, because there's a sharp edge in the car that cuts the wire. So unfortunately I spent about $400 with Kia to figure out what the problem was, but let's go and take a closer look. This is the center brake light, also sometimes called the third light. To get this plastic thing off, you're going to pull down. Now it's kind of it's tight, but I wouldn't put a screwdriver in there or anything. But this just comes right off. It snaps like that. Comes right down.
That's great.
Now, the problem is not here. I just wanted to show you what this looks like. Now, you could take these are 10mm sockets. You could loosen these two here with a socket, and just take this light off and test it. All right, I just wanted to show you where the light is. Now here there are wires that run into the frame of the car here, and they run down along this way. Now here's where the problem is. There's a rubber thing right here that goes into the body of the car, like that. That's how it's set up initially, and this is where the wire was cut. So what you'd have to do here is just pull this rubber with your hands. It takes a little bit of doing, but you just pull it off and you'll expose all these wires. So once you pull this rubber stopper off, you're going to expose these wires. Now, I've already repaired this thing, so I don't want to take it apart and then redo it. So I'm going to try to explain to you what happened. If you stick your finger up in here, there's a very sharp edge right there along the metal inside, and what that did was it started to cut these wires. And what I found was that the one wire, which is black, was the one for the brake light, and there were a couple of other wires of these colored ones that were also partially shredded, like the insulation had started to come off because it was rubbing against that sharp edge. So here's what I did. To begin, so really any of these colored wires could have been shredded, but the one that was this thick black one. And what I did was, it wasn't cut all the way through, so I just wrapped some electrical tape around it, so that it would seal the metal of the wire back in and protect it. But the one that was having to do with the light was a skinny black one. And the way they built this on Kia was, if you see, like right there where my pinky is, that's the size of the wire that powers that light, and it's so skinny that when it rubbed up against the inside there, it cut it right in two. So now they made this also with no slack in there, so it wouldn't even reach to try to reconnect it. So what I did was I added an extra piece of black wire. I'm going to show you later in this video how to solder that together, but what I did was I got a piece of black wire. It obviously doesn't have to be black, it just has to be a small piece of wire, and I soldered it on this side and I soldered it on this side. So now I remade the connection, and I had a little extra slack, a little play to work with. I'm sorry, I know my electrical taping is not very good. Don't complain about that. It's just that there's not much room to work in here. But as long as you, underneath the electrical tape, I twisted the wire and soldered it, so it's a permanent connection. The tape is not too neat. I'm sure maybe someone could do this neater, but that's the point, is to reconnect this. Once I fixed it, I was unable to get this rubber thing to actually,
the stopper
to stay up there. Actually, if you fight with it a bit, it'll stay up there. But that's the point. It's got to go back in there, and the light works now. The whole thing with, I brought it to Kia. They initially told me that the light was broken, and I had already proven that the light wasn't broken because I took it off. And tested it with a 12-volt power supply, and it lit up. But they insisted it was broken. They ended up charging me for a new light. And then they decided that no, the light wasn't really broken, that there was a broken wire. And what had happened was they repaired the wire, but a month or two later it broke again. And because I knew there was a broken wire, I was able to, I just took a guess. I pulled this thing off, and sure enough, I saw the broken wire right there. So, this is like a mystery problem that if you don't know there's a broken wire here, you could spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars to try to get it fixed. And hours of your time, like I did, wasted sitting in a Kia dealership while they fiddled with it. But like I said, initially they fixed it. It didn't hold, and I had to do what maybe my unprofessional looking fix, which does hold. Anyway, I hope this helps and gives you some idea of what the problem might be here. And I think other Kias of this year and also 2012 would probably have the same problem, because they're probably all made exactly the same, and they all have that sharp edge right in here. One thing I want to show you is how to test whether there's voltage coming here to the light, to determine if it really is the light that went wrong. These LEDs last a very long time, so most likely it's a broken wire and not the light. But I'm going to take this off again. It's a 10mm socket. These 2 bolts. Okay. Now this is the light. The wire that feeds the power to it is this, and you could just squeeze this right here and pull it right out. Okay, so now the light is loose. Now, right here, obviously you got 2 wires running in here. There's a positive and a negative. If we get a voltmeter and test those voltages there, you'll see whether there's power coming to the light. Now, obviously, you got to have a friend step on the brake to get that power run. But what we'll do is we'll just put a brick on the brake so that it lights it up. So what we can do is just check the voltage coming out of that electrical connector that for the brake light. I'm not going to show you how to use this whole thing, but this is a volt meter. I just set this on 20 volts because I know it's only going to read it at the most 12 volts, but 20 volts will give it, that's the proper setting. We've got the 2 connectors here. Okay, we're just going to go up here and put 1 lead into each of these wires, and then if you go back down to the voltmeter, you'll see it's reading 11.44 volts. So that means there's power coming to here, right? Now, if I hook up the light at this point, it will of course go on.
Now you did place a brick on the
Yeah,
light,
yeah.
right?
I mean, there's something holding the brake pedal down now, so that's why it's lit. Obviously, if there wasn't anything holding the brake pedal down, there would be no voltage here. But here's what I'm saying: if you test this for voltage, and there is voltage here, and you connect this light, and it doesn't light, then it really is the light. Okay. But what I found was that there was no voltage here. when I had someone step on the brake. So I knew there somewhere along the line there was a broken wire. And then if you look at this, you could see that it goes to the left, and that's how I followed it back down to this thing and did the work there. Okay. So what we'll do here is just put this this light back onto the car. Again, this clip will only go one way, and I hope I have it the right way. Okay, beautiful. So that's on. Put it back like that. We have two 10 millimeter bolts that'll go in there. We got a socket. I'm just tightening this by hand right now. Okay. Get the socket on, wrench on there. Don't crank this to death. I mean, just snug it up. It's only made out of plastic here. You don't want to crack it. Okay, and then the plastic piece has these clips in it on either side, and that's going to go on there. Just be nice, gentle, and just push it and click it.
Nice.
That's it. So I want to show you just how I soldered that extra piece of wire, and the couple of things, or a few things that I need here is I have this thin wire. It doesn't have to be exactly like this, but what I did to repair it was, again, there wasn't enough slack in the existing wire that Kia put there to solder it together. So I just added a little piece of an extension, and you probably need maybe like 3 or 4 inches, something like that.
Where did you buy that?
Oh, this
I mean, you might have had it.
well, back in the day I bought this at Radio Shack, but Radio Shack doesn't exist anymore. I think you can get it at Micro Center or any kind of like electronics, maybe even a hardware store, you know. I got some solder, my soldering iron, which I'm sorry this is old, but it still works, electrical tape, and a wire cutter. Now, I love this wire cutter because it's got pre-fitted notches there, so when you're trying to strip the insulation off, you don't cut through the wire. But let me do that right now, because I'm going to just copy what I did when I actually fixed it. I cut off about, I don't know what that is, maybe 4 inches of wire. Okay, and then I stripped each end. Now you could strip it with this part or pick the right area. Actually, it's probably the yeah. So you just strip off a little bit of wire, and then you strip off the other side, and that'll be the piece that'll join the other two ends. But we're going to go inside so I can show you how the soldering works. So we're inside now, and I just want to show you how to solder. Obviously, you'd be doing this on the car where the wire is, but since I already fixed it, you know, I'm not going to take it apart again, but I want to show you how to do the soldering. So this was the piece of wire that we cut to extend the wire that's already in there. The trick with if you don't have this type of a wire stripper is just to use a regular wire stripper with the blades like this, and just don't squeeze it too hard. Just squeeze it enough so that it cuts through the insulation, and then just pull, and it'll take that off. Now what you want to do is twist the ends like that. So when you're working on this on the car, you'll have to strip the wire that you're putting in as the extension, and then the other wire that's, you know, attached to the car. And the best way to do this is just to twist them together like this once you stripped each side. So that's making a connection, but what we're going to do is solder that so it doesn't come apart. So what I'm going to do is just put this into the my little clip here just to hold it so I could show you how to do the soldering. Now what I did here was I have the soldering iron warming up. I put it in a ceramic cup because it keeps it from burning things or falling off the table or anything else that could happen, so the cup won't heat up. So this should be hot enough. Now I got the solder here. The trick is to warm this the wire up enough so that it will melt the solder. You don't want to touch the solder here and then touch it to here because it's not really getting into the fibers. So basically I'm holding it on the wire, letting it heat up, but not so much. Don't do this too long, just a few seconds, and then once you touch it, you see that wire will start to soak in the solder, and then just take the heater away. Don't touch it, let it cool a minute or two, and then now you've made a good connection. I know I'm not a great solderer, I probably didn't do it perfectly, but you know what, it's going to work. The next step, after this cools, don't touch it now because it's still too hot, but you're just going to take a piece of electrical tape and just, well, it's probably still, no, it's not too hot now. So you know that solder should have melted into the wire, and then you want to just take a piece of electrical tape and just wrap it around there. So again, this is all just for demonstration because you'd be doing this actually on the car and that. So you'd obviously have to make 2 of these solders because one, because you're adding this extension piece, so you would be then getting the other end where there's another wire and doing it again, so now you'd have a little more. Once again, this wire that I used, it has some print on it. I think this is 18 gauge. I'm not 100% sure, but basically you could probably get this at Home Depot or auto parts store or maybe even Micro Center. If you used a wire that was thicker than this, it would be fine. You know, it wouldn't hurt anything. Try not to use a wire that's thinner than the wire that's already in the car. You can go thicker, but don't go thinner. And that's about it. We hope this video was useful to you and possibly helped you to save some money and time. Thanks for watching.